Hello and welcome. My name is Jody Lynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness, and this is my dear friend Heather Marie.
Hi, I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate. Welcome to Channel Squared, where we have extraordinary channel conversations about everyday life topics. Every week, we choose a topic, connect with you, the divine, and our guides, and then channel here with you live.
Yes, and today we are channeling with our guides about the role of the body. Is it just a meat suit? Is there more? How it plays how it connects to ascension, and what are the keys to unlocking it? Ooh. I was just talking on Instagram, just talking about our episode and letting people know that we were going live in 15 minutes. And I just got really, really excited because of the conversation you and I had in our prep meeting. There is so much to cover here, from, your body and disease, how it, the actual physical body connects to the other bodies. And so much more. So where do we want to start, Heather?
I have no idea. Just pick a spot and that's where we'll go.
Okay, well, let's talk about the different bodies. I think we decided we were going to talk about the main four, but we can mention the other ones. So there's the physical, the mental, the etheric, and the astral body. Those are the kind of the main four that people talk about, right?
Right.
So give me a synopsis. What are they?
Okay, well, so our physical body, we'll start there since that's the one that everybody pretty much in the world, the whole existence is familiar with, either physical body. This is what many times spiritual community will call the meat suit, right? It's your physicality, it's the bones, the meat, the blood, all the things that make you human. So there is that physical body. When you're talking about like the etheric body, that's kind of like your spiritual body, and that is more where you are like your kind of like your divine connection. And then you have your mental body, which I think we put on the list, right? The mental body.
Mm-hmm.
The mental body it's not your brain per se, it's like your knowledge bank, where all of the information resides. So sometimes when people talk about mental body, you instantly go to, oh, my brain is, sickly or whatever. And that's just not the case. That's completely separate in a way and connected in a way. So what did I miss? Physical, spiritual, mental. What was the last one? Astral, your astral body. So your astral body is the body, the state of you that actually travels and visits other dimensions. So while there are, I think, 7 or 8 of these different bodies, we're going to kind of focus today, I think, on the 4 that we just discussed, because they're the ones that you are going to be more familiar with, and 2, they're the ones that we kind of interact with more regularity. So but they're all connected. So one plays into the next, which plays into the next, which plays into the next. And when you are thinking about things like the chakra system, the chakra system sort of connects a lot of these energy centers and therefore the different bodies. So how do we go? Where do we go from here? How do we?
Well, something that you said in our prep meeting was that it was almost like nesting dolls. I don't know if you guys have seen them, but I think that this is really important. And I love the way that you put this as nesting dolls, the tiny little wooden dolls that are, stacked. You open up one and there's a smaller one that you open up that one and a baby one and a baby one. And it keeps going on and on. And I like that visual because they're all together and you can see the separation of them as well. So maybe we start there, how they are all connected. And maybe that's Maybe that's complex, but let's channel about that.
Okay, so when we think about the different bodies, if we think about them in that context of a nesting doll, your physical body, the meat suit, will be on the outermost region, or so we think. But what if the meat suit is not necessarily on the outside? We just perceive it to be on the outside. Everybody tends to look inside of here as their, you know, like emotional body and their mental body and their etheric body. They just think it's all like inside of this, physical meat suit. But what if it's not? What if it's actually out here?
Mhm.
So, when we move around throughout our day and we come into contact with people, we're bumping into their bodies, right? These energetic bodies that we can't actually see. Well, I mean, maybe some people can. Those who see auras and stuff, I'm sure, can see the bodies. But you kind of come up to someone and you instantly get a feeling or a vibe from them, a vibration. And maybe that feeling and vibe is kind of like, oh, I don't know if I really like this person. Well, it could be that you know, one of their bodies is experiencing like dis-ease, right? And so it makes you feel uneasy. And
Mhm.
so when you think about this in this context of nesting dolls, figuring out where each one sort of lies, and do you take one off to do certain things? So, I know someone personally who astral travels and does work in other dimensions, and this person will remove their meat suit before they travel. And it's much easier, obviously, to travel when you are not lugging around a 170 or 180-pound meat suit. you know so is that a good practice? Maybe not. We can talk about some of those things, but
Yeah.
how they're all connected. you know, I think a lot of it is connection through energy centers. Kind of like, if you imagine the chakra system, right? You've got, your crown, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root. Okay. So those are the main chakras that everybody who knows chakras knows, uh, what those are. So those are all like sort of connected by a divine thread or a divine cord. And you can have one that's shut down while all the other ones are functioning.
Mhm.
So what if these different bodies are connected to various chakra systems? Okay, or energy centers. And the chakra system is not the only system. It's not the only energy system. You have energy centers all over your body.
Yeah.
Very powerful ones are right in your hands. So it's kind of like, maybe the mental body is connected to the third eye in the crown chakra,
Mm.
or maybe your etheric body is connected to your heart, your solar plexus, and your sacral chakra. So I mean, it's possible for these to be connected to something, and I think that they are.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree to that. I would agree with that. I think when I feel into it, it feels like multiple connections through different energy centers that
Mhm.
kind of keep it all together, if you will. And that's fascinating that we have these other bodies and they're all experiencing different things. We've been talking a lot about timelines as of late, how time works, you know, changing timelines, things like that. And something we always come back to is that everything is happening in this moment. And if you start to step outside of the frame on this one, when it comes to our bodies, the multiple bodies that we have that are connected, you could see how much easier that is to process, because there's the potential that there's these other bodies of yours that are having a completely different experience, whether that's past, present, future. I have no idea. But it's possible. And we had kind of talked a little bit about there was 3 other ones that we were kind of talking about. Do we want to kind of mention them right now?
Sure, you can mention them.
Okay, there was the casual, which was described as the reservoir of all memories, which I think is so interesting. I
It
wonder.
almost seems like a in-house Akashic record.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's connected to like the subconscious mind, maybe, or
Maybe.
no idea. Or maybe there's a connection to subconscious mind, and maybe there's a connection to the Akashic records themselves. Like maybe that's why you can access your own at any point, is because of this casual body, or so it was called. Then there's the cosmic body, which is, it sounds like divine wisdom.
Yeah, how I see the cosmic body is like the high self, right? So like this is your cosmic soul, this is the part of you that is connected to all things, everything, and God, source, creator. This is this highest level, this highest version of your existence. Yeah.
And then there's the atmic body. ATMIC, I think, is the way that it was spelled. So it might not be the correct pronunciation, but that was the highest plane, pure consciousness, divine self, high self.
See, I got that wrong. Okay, so tell me again what the cosmic body is. See, we only have the 4.
yeah, exactly. All that I've gotten written down was the wisdom, and it's very difficult to understand because so few people have access to this body.
Yeah. Well, so to me, it kind of feels like, and like I'm asking the definition, like to almost to define the difference between cosmic and what was it? Atmic?
Yeah.
Atmic. Cool.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting is that the difference between those 2 bodies is the cosmic is access to the oneness, like the one infinite knowledge, where the other one, I'm going to call it the atomic body, the atmic body, they are saying is your high self, your highest version, highest plane of yourself. So so I can see now the separation between the 2. So we hadn't channeled on that specifically before our live episode. So I'm glad that we did.
Yeah. And just to give our audience some, like, a brief window into how we usually tee up these conversations, what I love is when we do our prep meeting, we're usually not in the channel, for the reason being that we want to learn and we want to come in with like, okay, what questions do we have? So a lot of the questions that we ask in all of our episodes are ones that we're specifically asking as individuals. How does this work? How does that work? And then we channel live with you here, so you get the answers in real time, just when we do.
Exactly. And I
we really never know what's going to come out of our mouths.
Exactly. It could be a total shit show one of these days. But yeah, that is what's really cool about, I think, this show, is that we have these conversations and we sort of like get the nuts and bolts of what we want to talk about, and then we just ask when we get here. So you're learning it when we're learning it, and I think that's really special. It's like one big fun learning environment with everybody.
So I keep getting the picture of a transformer, like not a transformer in terms of like an electrical utility box of some kind, but like the actual transformer from the movies, like it looks like a car, but then when it transforms, if you will. It's now this big giant robot that has, I don't know, special things that fire out of its hands or feet, or I don't have a lot of knowledge about Transformers, so I apologize. But I wonder what that is.
Yeah, I wonder. Okay, so let me ask about this. I'm having a thought about shape shifting. Because the moment that you brought up Transformer, the first thing that popped into my mind was shape shifting. And I'm asking about shape shifting relating to the Transformer image that you got. And what I'm receiving is that the way that the bodies are stacked is very much like the Transformer image that you got, and the shape shifting as I'm relating to it right now. And that is that it allows you to be perceived however you need to be perceived in order to always have divine connection and divine information. And so each one of these bodies has its own physicality to some degree, depending on the being, the energy, the human or animal that you are interacting with. You are received based on which of your bodies is most present.
You are received based on which of your bodies is most present. Interesting. Okay, you were going to say something else.
So what they're saying is that when you come into contact with a small child, they're using a small child as an example. Small children, and we're talking like little kids, like, 3, 4, 5 years old. They're saying that when you come into contact with a small child, they're able to see all of the sparkle that you inhabit, rather. So because they're able to see this, they can see the true essence of who you are with all of the layers that make up who you are. This is why, because they're so connected, they still have all of that pure connection without a lot of pollution from being on the earth plane. So they're talking about how when you interact with different things, small kids, animals, things that have a very strong connection still to the other side, the side beyond the veil, that this is them seeing you in your pure form, basically without your meat suit. So the non-visible bodies are the ones that these humans and animals and whatever see. They're saying that the meat suit is purely for humankind, that it was created in the essence of experiencing physicality, all of the things that come with experiencing physicality, but also in experiencing like and like. So physical meets physical. Because of the actual brain connection, there needed to be a body that was understandable. Wow, that is super interesting. So remember when we were talking, we're talking a little bit about like the mental body and the brain and how they're related, because sometimes people think that the mental body is the same thing as the brain, and it's not.
Yes.
So they're talking about this connection because this was something that we were talking about. Of course, they're eavesdropping always. So what they want to talk about the brain and the mental body is that the mental body can influence the brain, but the brain ultimately is driving the vehicle. So if there is like a disturbance in the mental body, it will essentially be picked up by the brain, and the brain will create the dis-ease within the physical body, will manifest what's happening in that mental body. So they're bringing this up because we were talking about the energy centers and how the meat suit relates to these different bodies through the energy centers. And the brain is an energy center, but it's the energy center for the physicality, for the physical body. So
the brain is
when,
connected to the physical body.
right, of course. I mean, it's what makes us breathe and eat and poop, you know,
Yeah.
right? So like the brain does like all of that, right? It's running all of those systems. So what they're saying is that if you have one of your, like, I'm going to call them energetic bodies for the sake of simplicity, but these other bodies that we're talking about that we can't see, the non-visible bodies, if there is any sort of like dis-ease or disharmony or imbalance in these bodies, that if it gets picked up by the mental body, the brain will also see it and can create dysfunction, disharmony within the physical body. So as such, it can also go the other way, that if there is some sort of dysfunction in the physicality,
Yeah.
that by the brain transmitting it to the mental body and the mental body projecting it out to the other bodies, those bodies can harmonize and feed in that good harmony back into the brain, which brings it back into the physical body. And what they're saying is that by working all of your bodies as a complete unit, that it can eradicate disease, disorder, and dysfunction. The end.
Okay, so when all of our bodies are in harmony, we can eradicate disease.
Right. That's what they just said. I think we need to take a collective deep breath, everybody, at the same time. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Hopefully I didn't lose everybody.
I feel like my brain is like, what
Cannot
now?
compute.
Yeah. What now?
Let's look at some of the questions here for just a second while that kind of soaks in. So does the meat suit protect the soul in some manner? That question came from Scott. So does the meat suit protect the soul in some manner? Not really. That's fascinating. So not really. And that's so interesting because we always talk about how like the soul rides around inside of the meat suit. I mean, I know I've said that probably a gazillion times, but what I'm getting is not really.
Okay, I have another question to like throw a wrench in this thing. There is the brain and there is the mental body. Is there a difference between the physical meat suit like this, this, and the physical body? Like there is a difference between the mental body and the actual physical brain?
No, the physical body and the meat suit is the same.
Okay.
So what they're saying about Scott's question, does the meat suit protect the soul in some manner? They're saying not really, not in the way that you are thinking. It's not a shell of armor for the soul. The soul doesn't require any shell of armor.
Ooh.
They're saying that, you know, the soul is God creator spark, and it doesn't require any protection in that way. That it is and always will be divine spark. So why do we have a meat suit then? If it's not protecting the soul, why do we have a meat suit? So that we can experience physicality and
Yeah,
all
it's
of the
required.
things.
Yeah, it's required for this dimension.
Right.
It's almost like you wouldn't be, the word isn't relatable, but like you couldn't be seen at a certain point because
Right.
the physical is needed to be seen and interact and experience, which
Right.
you start to think about, just taking a step back, the body and how we experience things. We experience it through our five senses: smell, touch, taste, hearing, sight, right? Five. Got it. Got all of them. But all of those things are coming from the physical body, programmed by the brain, which is then connected to the mental body and the physical body. There's those connections there. But without the physical eyeballs and the connection between the brain and the physical eyeballs, we can't see. Without the physical connection between the ears and the brain, we can't hear.
Right. And I mean, even like touch, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you didn't have this glorious meat suit, you would never experience what touch was like.
True.
Think about how different your life would be if you couldn't hear and smell and taste and touch and see. You know, technically seeing being one of the senses, without your eyeballs in their physical state, would you still have a third eye? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, really, the third eye is the pituitary gland, right?
Yeah.
Within the brain. So would you still have that? Probably not.
I think that you would if you didn't have
Yeah.
eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that, and maybe this is wildly incorrect, but I think that it's the physical body that has been damaged, where there is no sight, or there is a loss of sight. Like, I have contacts, so I'm losing my sight. There's obviously some sort of damage that has happened to my eyes for whatever reason. But even that being said, that's going back to the disease conversation. There is a bad program, or there is a blip inside of the physical body program, some sort of disease that has caused that sight to be lost. But I think that the third eye acts more like an energy center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. And they're talking about, okay, so they're confirming and disconfirming this theory. So
Okay.
what they're saying is that, you know, yes, it is an energy center. Yes, you would still be able to visualize and see, but not in the context of like how you would with your human eyeballs, because your human eyes perceive things based on physical learning. So if you were told that this was a wheel, you would always be, this is a wheel. So that is, you know, that's part of what they're bringing up, is that your physical eyes will always associate the item as what you're told it is, not what you intuitively know it to be. Where your energy center, like of your third eye, your like seat of visual, this is what you know it to be because of your connection energetically to all things. So that sounds a little complicated.
Yeah.
I want to let that kind of soak in for a minute. And I want to actually ask a question here. Scott had another question, and I know these questions are kind of tardy, so put them in the chat because we will get to the questions. But he says, wait, what place does the heart have with the mental body? And I think it was when we were talking about how like these chakras relate to the different bodies. So the heart, they're saying the heart doesn't have any connection to the mental body, that the heart has connection to the etheric body. So again, if we go back to our nesting doll thing, or, you know, example, if the nesting dolls are going to where the physical is on the inside and all of the other bodies are on the outside, that would make it where that mental body would be inside of the etheric body. So if you got rid of the etheric body, it would take a piece away. Am I getting that right? This is a much more complicated episode than I was thinking it was going to be. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this one. Sounds great.
Lots of questions.
Yeah. That's all they're giving me on that. I don't know if I'm getting confused.
Okay. I'm just going back to because my mind is like, whoa. So if you're there too,
we feel you.
Yeah, we feel you. Sometimes the stuff drops in and it's not until days later that I'm like, oh, I get it.
While you collect your brain, I want to like bring up a couple of Scott's comments here. And I love, Scott, that you're having this conversation with us, because I think it's really wonderful to, you know, have you participating. So you bring up, you know, the soul getting slimed. So let me give some context to what Scott means by the soul getting slimed. Like if you astral travel, right, you can pick up particles, goo, critters, or whatever from your travels. And so I think that what they're trying to say here, Scott, is that not that your soul maybe isn't necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't necessarily the part of you that's traveling. It's your astral body that's traveling. And yes, it can get slimed, which is why when it comes back, it's good to have a cleanup of some kind, an energetic cleanse to cleanse that body. But because we're, you know, monkeys here in flesh and blood, right? But our monkey meat suits are going, brains are going, well, we need to clean up the soul that just left the body. But what if it's just the astral body that's traveling and it picks up the critters and you train the soul, clean the astral body? And so because we're in this meat suit, our meat suit brain is going, I need to cleanse the soul when it comes back from astral traveling, because it can only conceptualize a soul and a meat suit. Exactly. Great. Okay, so what they're verifying, they're validating that, you know, it is in fact the astral body that travels, that the soul stays with the other bodies that are left behind. The soul never leaves the physical body until it is ready to move into its next iteration, or it leaves this plane.
Completely. Like
completely. And I think that this would probably be a great time to talk about what happens when you dream, because this was something that we talked about when we were prepping, and Jody's got a super creepy story that I'm like, you have to share that on the channel because it's so crazy. But before you share, hold on, before you share, I just want to preface this with, because we're talking about the soul leaving and coming back, right? If the soul left your body, could something get inside, right?
That was the question, because a lot of people, I think the majority of people, from what we were talking about earlier, they astral travel while they sleep. So now you've just clarified that it's the astral body that is leaving, not necessarily the soul that is leaving. But the question that came to mind for me is like, can someone jump in there, like, and just take over? And the reason why I asked this was because of TikTok. Funny enough, I take everything from TikTok with a grain of salt. But there was this weird video, and I don't even know how we started watching it. But basically, this guy is telling a story about a girl that he loved so much. And so he fell in love with her. He's super in love with her, but it's something weird is going on. She won't let him stay at her house, and she won't stay over at his. So he's thinking, something's going on here. I don't really know what it is. So he asks her about it after several months of dating and never sleeping together in the same bed overnight. And she said, when I fall asleep, I talk in my sleep, and I have I say really weird things that freak people out. And he was like, oh, come on, like, how bad could it be? And she's like, no, people get really scared, and whatever, it's broken up lots of relationships, and I don't want to take the chance. So he eventually convinces her that he's fine, like, whatever, I'm not going to be scared of a little sleep talking. Like, well, how bad could it be? What could she really say? So she stays over one night, and I don't know if it's at his house or her house, whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, he's laying there waiting all night long because he's curious what she's going to say, and how bad could it be? He's not really scared. He's assured her. And before she had gone to bed, she said, if it gets really bad and you're really freaked out, go sleep on the couch. I won't be mad at you. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, doesn't matter. So anyway, halfway through the night, he is still awake, and all of a sudden she sits up in the bed and turns to him. And I don't know if it's eyes open or eyes closed, but she starts to speak, and it's in a low voice, like something like demonic. It sounds
The
like
crazy gremlin voice.
That's right. Yes. and turns to him, looking right at him, and says, I'm going to eat the skin off of your bones. And he just is like, okie dokie. And she has given him clear instruction, do not wake me, do not try and get me out of it, whatever. I end up being really disorientated if you wake me up, so just leave me. If it gets bad again, go to the couch. So it gets worse. He's just sitting there staring at her. He does not acknowledge the voice or whatever, and she's talking about eating his skin off of his bones. And then he says, she says to him in this like weird voice that she's going to kill him tonight if he stays in this bed and he does not sleep on the couch. So he's kind of freaked out. And then he goes and he sits on the couch. I doubt he got any sleep, but as he leaves, she laughs like a demonic low, like, whatever. Right. And she starts catcalling him. What? You don't want to come back? You don't want me to eat you? All of these things. If you come back, I will kill you. And I think what she had said before he left the bedroom is, if you stay the night in here and you don't sleep on the couch, you will be dead by morning. So she's saying all of these things through the wall now and calling him back to the room. And he is probably scared shitless at this point on like, what is happening? And then she's like, or maybe I should come to you. Long story short, he said their love dissipated after that. But it made me think of, if you're astral traveling, is there potential that something else can jump in? And then we started talking about dreams, and are dreams just you on another plane traveling? Or we've talked about before, that dreams can be a representation of your subconscious trying to reconcile some information that you've been given. So how do we know if it's demonic, if it's if it's, your brain trying to reconcile what's going on, or if we are experiencing another place and time entirely.
Okay, so first, let's address the crazy, the crazy situation that happened to that poor man in that lady's bed. So there's something that happens to channels sometimes when they don't know that they're channels, or they are aware that they're channels, but they're not protecting themselves. And that is that when you have an open channel and you don't have any protection around it, and you just, it's kind of free, willy-nilly with your channel, it allows any and all beings to come communicate. And when you have someone who is a trance channel, who either is unaware that they're a trance channel, or is not protecting themselves as a trance channel, when the brain goes into that theta state of sleep and the channel is open, it allows for something to communicate through them. So one of the things that I was really a little, maybe even paranoid about when I first started trance channeling was, am I going to let in any Tom, Dick, and Harry on the other side to, freak out whoever's laying next to me, right? Like, it was something that I really legitimately thought about. And so for a long time, it was like, I would call in all of the protection that I had at my disposal to protect me at night, to make sure that no hooligans got in. And now it's, I know how to, turn it off, lock it down, shut it off. Like, I'm only open for business when I'm open for business, not when I'm in my dream state or my theta state brainwave. So what occurred in this instance with this girl, and had been occurring, is she probably doesn't realize she's a trance channel. And so because her channel's wide open and she's easily accessible, the minute that her brain goes into that theta state, some polarity little, effer is jumping in, and a little hooligan ankle biter is coming in to freak everybody out, right? And the thing is that, is the spirit that's communicating through her, or the being that's communicating through her, is it polarity? Maybe. Is it just some, Uncle Ned that died, 10 years ago, screwing with every man that comes into this woman's life? Maybe. Like, it could be, harmless, and it could be harmful. And so that's, that's one of the things when I'm working with my channeling students about protection, and like doing, actually opening and closing your channel is really, really important, so that you don't have instances like that. That woman is probably going to be single for the rest of her life.
Right.
Unless she marries another trance channel, and then it's just a spiritual, what are you doing in bed with me? Unless they have that kind of, I would imagine that would be very exhausting. Like, she must wake up very tired. But so I think that is, I don't mean to laugh so outwardly about it, because, when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, and now hearing it the second time, it's actually a little bit funny. But so, that is something that is a little bit separate of, like, when you're in that dream state, right? So, like, talking about like the dream state, and I want to ask, their position on the dream state. On the dream
God said
state.
that's another form of birth control.
I know. I was like, oh man. Yeah, definitely.
True.
Definitely.
True. I think, you're not having that kind of time after you've said, I want to eat your face.
I'm gonna eat the skin off your bones. Yikes.
Yeah.
So, like, when I channel, he says anytime something's using your body is not good. Absolutely. Like nothing should be using your body, whether it's your energy, your vibration, unless you're welcoming it in. So when I trance channel, I welcome the being to utilize me as a channel. And
But only,
I
yeah.
have specific things that I have rules, I have boundaries. It's very specific, and it's something that like I have a lot of restrictions on it. So it's not like, oh, okay, come on in, it's not like that at all. So if this is something that you want to, discover and for yourself and do and learn, definitely seek out a quality educator that can teach you so that you don't end up like that girl, single and alone for the rest of her life because every man gets scared off by whatever demon shows up at night.
And
Um,
we just to interject there for a second, Heather, this is a drum that we used to beat very heavily at the very beginning of our show. When we first started this show, because there's so many people that are inviting things in without knowing or verifying who they are and what they want, whatever, just having this trust that's out there, and things like this, whatever is happening to this woman, it could be an example of what you're inviting in while you are sleeping. And I mean, obviously that in that situation, the being had some sort of, or whatever was happening, had some sort of control over her body, because she actually sat up and I think opened her eyes, and then they were using her mouth. So that has always made me mindful when I am channeling, to be very, very specific. Who am I channeling? And the more that I let go and, move my consciousness to the side and begin to trance channel, the more cautious I become. That's for sure.
yeah. And so I think that, that type of situation versus like dream state, right? You'd ask the question about dream state. And I think it's important that we get this question answered. When it comes to when you're dreaming and you're in your dream state and you are experiencing like things happening, right? Are you Is this a figment of your imagination? Is it your like emotions? Like, what
Mhm.
is it that's creating this dream? Or is it that you are actually visually experiencing an alternate timeline or dimension
Or predicting the future.
or predicting the future? Perhaps, sure. So when I ask this question, I get that there are instances where your dream state is like almost like hijacked by your waking life. That the dream state, this, and they're going back to this theta state, right? This place where your brain like literally shuts off other than to keep the body going, right? Like the breathing and, and the blood flowing and the heart beating and all of this. But it's where the brain is literally at complete rest and it's not having any thoughts. So they're talking about this theta state is not a dream state. There's no consciousness that is involved in that state. And so if you're having dreams from that theta state, it is you in fact experiencing through the synchronicity, like the synchronizing of vibrations to the other aspects of you, like the other versions of you that are in this moment at this time. So that's interesting. So if you can imagine, like there's like if you have a doppelganger, okay, like let's just use that as an example. Okay, you have doppelgangers all over the world, all over the galaxy, all over the universe, right? And they're all experiencing something right now. So in that theta state, you're literally like tuning into the vibration of all of those experiences. And so you
All at
may
once.
hone in all at once, and you may hone in on one particular experience. And it's like you may feel like a participant in it, or you may be observing it from above. But this is you in that state of like observation, because you've tuned into the vibration of the rest of you. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Sort of. Let's see if we can get a tangible example. Like, okay, if I experience a dream of, this has not happened, I'm making this up, but the earth crumbling and, humanity ending, or like things being really hard and lots of terror and trauma. That is my, I don't even know how to put it, me experiencing the other vibrations that are currently out there for my doppelgangers. Is that
right?
So some other pieces of me are experiencing that version of life right now, and I am kind of looking in on them.
Right. Exactly. What they're saying is, okay, so the example that they're giving me in a way to understand sort of like the hierarchy of the doppelgangers, right? Remember when we related high self and all of that to like iPods?
Yes.
Right. The iPod episode. If you haven't seen the iPod episode, I don't know if we know how to link it in the thing, but if not, it'll be in the show notes afterward. But the iPod episode talked about how like we are all iPods, and our high self is the computer, and then God is the Apple cloud, right? Where all the music is stored. And so that was how it was described to us. So what they're saying is, it's basically when you're in that theta state, you've tuned into the vibration of the high self that is syncing up with all of the iPods.
So it's downloading or uploading the information from all of those other lives that are happening.
Exactly. And so you are basically like connecting like into that vibration or into that computer mainframe, and then you're drilling back down into another experience of you. Right? So it's kind of like that is how they're describing it. That makes sense,
That makes sense. Why is it usually my perception of my own dreams, when I dream, which isn't very often, I find that I don't have a lot of dreams, whether I'm not having them or I do not recall them. And maybe this is the distinction, because my guides are like, but the dreams that I do recall tend to be the scarier ones, or more frightening ones, or more traumatic ones, of things that bother my heart, things that I'm afraid of, or whatever it may be. But maybe the only reason I'm recalling those ones is because as I was watching the experience, or having that experience as I was dreaming, it caused maybe some trauma or something like that, versus the other ones I don't recall because they're happy, la la la. So there's no need to recall it. I'm not really sure why I would recall one or the other, but it feels like more often than not, when I do recall a dream, it's not very pleasant.
Yeah. So what they're saying is that when you experience this moment, when you're waking up and you're recalling that experience, it's like you went to that experience to see it and experience it. And so when you bring this information back in your astral body, it sinks back into your other bodies, and your other bodies also experience it. And so once it reaches from your mental body to your brain, and your brain picks it up, that is what brings in the recall for you to experience it in a physicality perspective. So they're saying, you see the nesting doll, one goes out, collects, and brings back, and then all the other little dolls go, "Ooh, I see now." So, okay, so that nesting doll thing, okay, that makes more sense now that they've explained that like that.
Yeah.
Are you
Absolutely.
guys following us?
Yeah, hopefully
I,
this is making sense. A last question on this is it always this way, or is it sometimes this way and sometimes it's our ego processing daily life or reconciling something that has happened to us?
yeah, they're saying that, when you have dreams that are in that, when you're in that theta state, it's actually astral travel. But when you're not in that theta state, I think um they're saying delta state. I don't know. I don't know the way the brain works that way, but they're saying when you're in that delta state, that is your ego and your human mind trying to process what has occurred, what you've experienced in this particular instance. Could be a bad dream, or not a bad dream, like a scary movie. It could be, an altercation you had with somebody, but that's a delta mind state
So we really don't,
occurrence.
is there a way to tell the two apart outside of, being hooked up to a machine that says you're in theta or delta?
Not really. They're saying, the human mind has limitations. So you can always like ask for clarity from your like high self, or from like your like etheric body. You can always ask, like, your soul, your heart space, for clarity in that. But they're saying that, the human mind has a very difficult time understanding what it can't tangibly understand. Like it can't see, taste, smell, feel, that kind of thing.
Wow. Oh my gosh, this conversation is like breaking my brain open. And I feel like we haven't even covered half of what we have. Like, we wanted to talk about the engine behind manifestation, which body. We wanted to talk more about how all of the bodies connect with one another. And the sense that we were getting earlier is that when all of these bodies are in harmony, that's when you can change your physical reality. Like, this is not a pen, this is a lima bean. Like, things can change right in front of your eyes, whether we call that instant manifestation or whatever you want to call it. There was that stuff we wanted to talk about, the other energy centers within the body, more about disease and clearing disease. I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of this conversation, Heather.
I
Oh
know.
man.
I know. If you guys want us to do a part 2 to this, just put it in the chat right now. Just yes, part 2, whatever you want to say, put something in the chat right now that you want us to continue this conversation, and we will have a part 2. We do have other things slated, so we're not sure if it will be next week or if we will put it for, in a few weeks, but let us know if you want to have a part 2, and we can go into all of those topics. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, but we are just about out of time. So if you're enjoying the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button. It really does help us out. We are trying to get a customized URL. So share this with your friends. If you have extra accounts, sign up under those and subscribe under those. We're so close. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what a crazy conversation today. We need like 3 hours for this.
I know. I feel like this could be a whole like live session workshop kind of thing. And I think it's really, really important right now. And we didn't even touch on this either, but I do believe that there is an attack within humanity that is specific on and disconnecting the physical and the spiritual. And I think that as we go down that path and we dissociate from that physical body more and more and more within society, we're causing more and more disassociation inside of spirituality and oneness, and that's the opposite of what we need to do at this time. So I feel like part 2 is inevitable. So we will keep you in the loop. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate each and every one of you that are subscribed to our channel and that come and hang out with us every week. We will be back next week with a surprise episode, maybe part 2, maybe something else. We'll let you follow our Channel Squared Instagram page to find out. And we'll see you guys next week on Tuesday at 1 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Mountain, 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern. Man, I should just say 2 o'clock Mountain and you guys can figure it out.
Seriously. And if you're in London, we have no idea.
Yeah,
you're going to have to look it up.
Google Translate. That's the best thing we can recommend. All right. We appreciate you and we will see you all